Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. It's morning here in Atlanta. I'm Ellen Dunham-Jones, the director of the MSUD here at Georgia Tech, and it's my pleasure to get to meet you and give you a chance to get to meet us a little bit. I'm joined by Professor Richard Dagenhart, who is also very, very involved in teaching in the program, and with Robin Tucker, who is the academic advisor and is your go-to person for everything you need to know about how to actually count your credits and figure out visas and make sure it really help you get through the program. So we're going to present some information that we think will be useful to you. And then we also are joined by three current MSUD students, Yao, Jiho, and Sam, and they'll give you the real story. We're going to give you the official, but they'll give you the real story. So I'm going to switch to the PowerPoint now. And, right. No, I want the other PowerPoint. Why is this doing this? Hold on, we're getting the wrong one. Here we go. Okay, and full screen. So here's the agenda for today. I will give an overview of the MSUD. Robin will talk logistics and registration. Richard will talk about what kinds of jobs do our alumni tend to work in. What kind do they? A lot of them will also go on and get PhDs. He'll talk about the different career paths, and then we'll get the student perspectives, and then invite all of you to ask questions. There's a chat button on the right side of your screen. Just type in any question you want, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end. So why choose Georgia Tech? In many respects, I think we're a fabulous university. Georgia Tech is ranked number 18 in the world rankings of schools of architecture and built environment. We are located within the College of Design, which has top-ranked faculty in the schools of architecture and planning. And I was thrilled this year in a crowdsourced voting on the Planetizen website, which is a pretty popular website on urbanism. I came in at number 71 on the list of the 100 most influential urbanists ever. That may say more about my web presence, but anyway. I think we are a school that has very strong research, strong influence, impact, and aspirations. Our research in particular, I think we do a lot of work on ecological infrastructure, how to adapt the existing systems of transportation, power, water, food, all the different infrastructural systems to really adapt to the contemporary challenges of climate change, autonomous vehicles, you name it, stormwater, sea level rise. We also have faculty with a lot of expertise in spatial morphology and urban spatial analytics, whether that's space syntax-based, GIS-based, increasingly combining BIM and GIS as part of how we begin to monitor and mine the data in smart cities. My own research focuses primarily on retrofitting suburbia, all of what do we do with all the aging, dying, dead malls, big box strip malls, that sadly too much of the rest of the world is still building. So here are a couple of images. On the lower left is the Hinman Studios, where most of the graduate urban design studios are held. And then this past year on the right is this year's fall MSUD studio and everybody actually smiling at the end of the review. Not sure if it was just they were glad that it was over, or they were very proud of their work. I hope it was the latter. So to give you a little sense of kind of where we are, the MSUD is at MS in urban design. We are housed in the School of Architecture, which is one of 5 schools within the College of Design, which is within Georgia Tech, which is in the city of Atlanta. We benefit from all of those relationships, and of course have very strong relationships with the School of City and Regional Planning, but also with the School of Building Construction, which recently started a Master's in Real Estate program, and we have some connections, good connections with them. I think what particularly distinguishes our program is that the design studios absolutely focus on retrofitting, redevelopment, regeneration of existing communities and existing places. We like to learn from those existing places and the natural and man-made systems that inform them, but then help those places adapt to contemporary challenges. So it's both the learning goes in both directions, but we really do focus, we don't focus on just sort of imagining brand new places starting from scratch. We prefer to actually, we think there's a lot of work to do to help existing places. Another distinguishing feature, I think, about our program is we are a 3-semester program, and the summer semester is the 3rd semester. We strongly encourage students to go on a program called Modern Architecture, Modern City, where the students do in-depth study of either 4 or 5 cities in Europe. They're typically spending about 2 weeks per city, guided by Georgia Tech faculty who really know those cities, getting into really understanding what works here but doesn't work there. And so students also, there's coursework involved, but students also do a rigorous independent study. So we believe strongly that great urban designers need to experience great urban places. They need to know what's great, but they also need to know what isn't working well. And so we really strongly recommend the summer semester and going on the program in Europe, and the students have a really good time. We'll talk a little more about that. Another feature that I think the students have also really been enjoying is that what we call the spring, during spring break, a week in March, coming up next week here in Atlanta, we offer what's called the practicum, where students do an unpaid internship, just 1 week, but at leading urban design firms across the US. Peter Calthorpe's office, Peter will be working directly with Elon this year. Yao, who's with us, will be working with Dan Solomon at Solomon Mithun. Dan will be working with David Baker Architects. Those 3 firms are all in the San Francisco Bay Area, really top, fabulous firms. We have 2 students going to Chicago, one to SOM Chicago, one to Doug Farr's office. Doug wrote the book on sustainable urbanism. We have students going to Torty Gallus's offices in Washington, D.C. and in Los Angeles. And we've had students go to New York City to work in the offices of Skate and WXY. So really great opportunities. Now, in addition to the required coursework, students take electives, and we have just a wide range of electives in really cutting-edge technologies and research across the campus. And we also take pride in, we want to admit students from multiple backgrounds so that we get really an opportunity for the students to engage in very interdisciplinary collaboration. And I think you'll hear a little more about from the students on what they think of how that's working. So the curriculum is shown here. The fall, this is a design-based program. Studio is the most credits. Studio is a big deal. In the fall, you'll take the Ecological Infrastructure Studio with Professor Richard Dagenhart. And that studio will always I'll talk a little more about that and show some slides. You'll also take the Introduction to Real Estate Development. It's important. If you want to get any of your designs built, you have to understand real estate. You'll take Theories of Urban Design, that's with me, and then you'll get to take an elective. And again, there's just a wide range of types of courses: GIS, space syntax, urban design policy, green infrastructure, complete streets, digital democracy. There's a really wide range. Then you get a month-long winter break. In the spring semester, we kick off the studio with the ULI Hines competition. I'll talk a little bit more about that one too. The images behind me on the wall are the competition entries that Yao, Jiho, and Sam, the students who are here with us today, their teams submitted. And then the rest of the spring studio will be the retrofitting suburbia studio. Sometimes the studios are really set in downtowns, sometimes they're out in the suburbs, but these our studios are almost always sponsored by real communities. So we get to work with the planning commissioners and working with the community leaders in this. You'll also take History of Urban Form, and then you'll have a choice to either take Growth Management Law or Urban Ecology. This year students didn't have that choice, but next year they will. The elective, and again, just lots more electives on a range of topics. And of course, the spring break practicum internships are in there. So then summer, the third semester is, again, when we strongly recommend that you do the Modern Architecture, Modern City program. But you could, if you don't want to do that, you could stay in Atlanta and do an independent study here, or we may be offering a joint studio that would be with urban design, and we have another master's program in high performance buildings. And we've been talking about trying to bring those two together. It's worth noting, so that fall and spring, you're carrying a full load and tuition, you've got to pay the full tuition. In the summer, if you are out of state, if you do Modern Architecture, Modern City, you actually pay in-state tuition, which cuts the tuition in half. But of course, then you're paying a program fee. But overall, it's actually a little bit cheaper for most of the out-of-state students. If you stay in Atlanta, if you are only doing the independent study, you can get your credit count down to 6 credits. That also cuts tuition almost in half. So most students don't pay as much tuition in that summer semester as in fall and spring. So the Ecological Infrastructure Studio that Richard teaches in the fall always is a great introduction, I think, for students into the issues of stormwater, sea level rise, resilient riverfronts. He's taught studios on missions, how to make highways that are zero carbon. A range of topics, almost always working in collaboration with underserved communities, usually with our partner, the Georgia Conservancy, that just adds extra depth, I think, to those projects. Then the spring, the retrofitting suburbia studio and the ULI Hines competition tends to focus that much more on real estate dynamics and changing transportation modes. So if Richard's studio focuses that much more on natural systems, My studio focuses that much more on the man-made systems, and they balance each other, I think, really, really well. So as I said, the ULI, we don't only do the ULI Hines competition, but we've got a really good track record. In particular, the ULI Hines competition, this is a 2-week real estate and design development competition. The students have to organize themselves into teams of 5 students representing 3 different disciplines. So they've got to work with some architects, city planners, real estate people, business students. And in 2 weeks, they produce the boards that you see on the screen and that you were looking at behind me, as well as they produce a pro forma, so they're figuring out what it's going to cost to buy the land, to build the buildings, what kind of rents they're going to, or sale prices they're making, and how much profit they would make from the project after 10 years. This year, there were 122 entries from 59 schools. Only 4 were selected as finalists, and 2 of those 4 are from Georgia Tech. We beat MIT and Harvard, just say. So we've had 12 placements in 7 years in international design competitions, and I think that speaks very well to the quality of our students and the quality of our teaching. So as I said, Modern Architecture, Modern City is a great program. This coming summer, the students will be going to London, Paris, Barcelona, and the Netherlands. And some years Berlin is in there, some years Copenhagen, shown here. It's a fabulous program. Our faculty are very engaged in research and writing. Here's a couple of the books that have come out of the faculty. Our city planning program is also very highly ranked. And we have the Sino-US Eco-Urban Lab. This is run by Professor Perry Yang, who's in city planning, but also has a joint appointment in the School of Architecture and works with the MSUD. And they really work on calculating and measuring things like carbon footprint, how much solar power gain, different modeling of blocks in different ways will contribute to city making. Here's just a couple of the sort of highlights from the last couple of years. Over on the left are from this year, we did parklets, where the students went out and got community input on their design proposals by plastering their drawings all over a rental truck and really getting, turned out to be a great way to actually interview some of the homeless people living in the area. We do a lot of getting out measuring wheels and just learning the dimensions, the sizes of actual places. How big are things? Most architects and landscape architects and planners aren't really taught that, and it's essential information to us. And then we do a lot of field trips and a lot of dinners, lots of dinners. From last year, this year is still going on, we don't have the images yet, but last year we did a lot of work in Chattanooga and Savannah. We also took a field trip down to Seaside, got a tour with Andres Guani, leading the urbanist, and more dinners. Last year we had 2 honorable mentions at the ULI Hines competition. So I'm going to turn us back live, if I can do that. Let me actually switch to Richard, and then we'll go to Robin. Then we can just keep with the PowerPoint. So,
just that button.
Yeah.
Our students are doing a lot of different things in a lot of places. One of the things to remember is the challenges of urban design globally now revolve around a lot of things. Climate change, particularly having to do with water, repurposing infrastructure, from repurposing streets, designing streets to taking down highways, and other major issues that are confronting cities all over the world. No matter what the scale of practice, it can be a small company, can be the public sector, can be big international firms. Cassie Brown, who graduated in 2010, is working for Perkins and Will in Atlanta. She's now one of the major urban designers in the company and doing projects all over the world. Echo is a more recent graduate who started to work, did an internship at Perkins and Will here in Atlanta, and is now in London working with one of our graduates from a long time ago, who is the director of urban design for the world for Perkins and Will. Jessica Flores is working here in Atlanta for Perkins and Will as well. She worked for a previous urban design firm, urban architecture design firm, Lord Sargent. Scott graduated several years ago and is working in Baton Rouge. She taught for a while at Louisiana State University in the landscape program, and then switched to working professionally. Marco is senior urban designer at Florida Sargent, LAS it's called, and working on both landscape projects with the landscape architect, and he's also working on urban design and architecture projects. Bushra graduated last year and is working at XY in New York City. Interesting projects, and she's enjoying the city a lot. Louis Johnson from a few years ago is in Nashville and is a project manager. Just received the Louis Johnson, he was awarded the National Landscape Architecture Grant for his research and his work. Claire Perko is also a landscape architect, working for Southeastern Engineering, working on street designs. Animesh has been working for Shape in Atlanta. This is a project by the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta and the redevelopment projects that are going on around the stadium. Try to weave the neighborhood, the surrounding neighborhood with the stadium. Jules graduated last year and is working in Washington on street design work and other projects. He was in the Modern Architecture and Modern City program last summer, just as Bushra. And Shandu, who is now working in Charleston, in Foundry Alley. And Miritica is working in Laredo, Texas, in a Mexican, Texas, U.S. Mexico border town. She was also in Europe in the Modern Architecture and Modern City program last summer. Maria graduated a long time ago, is working in Shanghai, been in Shanghai for several years. She's the head architect of a group called Mouse, which is both a real estate development and architecture firm. Jason Combs has a first degree in planning, and then his second degree in urban design, and is working at his own firm in Savannah, Georgia, and is currently working with us with the studio that we're doing in Savannah. And Carlos Perez has his own firm and is working on a variety of projects all over the Southeast. He's a landscape architect as well, working on urban design projects. Ryan Gravel is 1999, a long time ago, but he's one of our heroes, the inventor of the Beltline in Atlanta, which is transformed the city of Atlanta over the last 18 years. Students also work with public sector and nonprofits, all kinds of different agencies. Hong and Kai are both working in the Tongji Architectural Design Group in Shanghai. Chiki is working as a planner in the China Academy of Urban Planning and Research in Beijing. Justin Wallace is working as an urban designer in Nashville, Tennessee, better known as Music City. There's a project for Music Row. Wesley Brown is working in Atlanta for Central Atlanta Progress, the leading nonprofit agency that directs development in downtown Atlanta. Lou is working for the World Bank and working on major projects across the world. And then some are academics. Two of them, Aria is enrolled. She's finished her coursework and started her dissertation at MIT, focusing on environmental issues. Kiran is in Cambridge, a PhD student, in his second year now. Nathan is a researcher at ETH, the Zurich branch school at the Future City Lab in Singapore. And others are working in other places, in cities across the world. And these days, I travel across the world, so a lot of students are in global practices that may be in one place and practicing on projects in cities around the world.
All right, thanks, Rick. So now we'll turn it over to Robin to talk about logistics.
So by now, most of you, if not all of you, should have received your admissions letter from either myself or from our other academic advisor, Neutral Wisdom. We both will work with you the duration of your program on logistics of coursework, how to get introduced to other faculty here if you have areas of other interest outside of MSUD. I know that if you have not yet received an institute admissions letter, for Georgia Tech, it's a little bit different than a lot of schools. You will receive a departmental letter from us, which you should have received by now by email. And then you also will log back into your CollegeNet application, and you'll be able to see your institute decision soon, if not already. Usually there's about a 2 to 3 week lag between the departmental letter and the institute letter. Once you have received your institute letter, what we ask that you do is log back into your CollegeNet application. You will see an accept your decision button, and you'll be able to let us know whether you plan to come. And we keep a check on that on a daily basis, so don't worry that it will go unseen. We will be getting with you once we see that you've accepted your decision on processing for your I-20. And other documents that you may need to get to the U.S. to study. In the meantime, if you know that you're going to accept your decision, or once you know that for sure, please plan to get together bank documents, your passport photo page, your home address. I will be asking for all of those to get you processed quickly. We do those just as fast as is humanly possible at Georgia Tech. I know sometimes it seems like a long process. Just know that we are aware of the wait times in each country. We know how long it will take you once you receive your I-20 to reasonably get a visa appointment to get your visa there to come to study here. You will need to plan to be here at least a week before classes begin, if at all possible. There will be a few details that you have to attend to, such as your immunization records, possibly receiving some immunizations that may not be required in your country. And those things can't be done and verified until you're actually here on the ground in Atlanta. You will receive instructions about how to check in through the iStart system. Once you have received your I-20, you can do those things. There's a pre-arrival check that you will do, and then there's one once you're here in Atlanta. If you have questions about any of that, you certainly should have my email and Deidre's email by now. If not, you can access both of those from the architecture website that I'm sure you're very familiar with by this point. Once you're here, we will get you a program plan in concert with Ellen, and we will get you registered just as quickly as registration opens in August. If you have concerns, we're always here. I answer my phone during the day, 8 to 4, and so does Nidra, and we are happy to speak with you in person on the phone, or you may email us any of your questions. And if you have questions now, I'll be here for the duration of this program so I can address those at the end. Thank you, and we hope you choose us.
All right. All right, we're going to switch to this. I'll introduce the students to come in. We're going to switch chairs, and then I'll let these guys come in, and then we'll switch to the next PowerPoint. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Hi, Gino Choi here.
Hi, I'm Yao.
Hello, I'm Sam.
All right, Yao is going to start and talk about life in, studio life at the school. Share screen. I want to get that's fine. I don't know where we've lost. Maybe when I turned it down, we lost your images. You think you can find them? Sure. All right. And I'm going to turn off the image of that participant who's showing up now to video. Okay. And I don't know. I think I've lost your PowerPoint. Okay, you can try. So while Yao is looking for her PowerPoint, there it is. Is it shared? Yeah, I'm not sure if it's shared. We can share the. We have to go back to Blue Jeans. In Blue Jeans, share it. So share screen, and then you have to go. You have to first go to the PowerPoint. Yeah, there, and then you can go. Yeah. So that should be working. Yeah.
Okay, hi. I will introduce about our studio life. Basically, our studio life is very busy, sometimes stressful, but also a workplace like home. So it's located in a small corner where we can have a variety of communication and group discussions. And everybody will have an individual table, and there is a plenty of rooms for reviews too. And also everyone will decorate studios with varieties of things like basketball stands and table tennis table and sofa beds also. And for me, it's really like a big family. And then we are going to talk about a little bit about projects. So until now, we have done 4 projects in total, and each involving different backgrounds and skills. So the first one is the reactivation and retrofitting of the Atlanta downtown area, a very small scale design like a square or a street corner. And the most exciting part is that like we participate, we occupying a parking space in the National Parking Day and getting the feedback and the information. And the second design of the residential area, the second design is a residential area of the suburb area of Atlanta. And then the most stressful one is the UI computation. It happened in the January. And this year, our site is on the Toronto Riverside with a group of 5. So the UR competition gave us more opportunities to collaborate with other professional students, such as architecture, planning, real estate, and business. And this year, we got 2 states of the final 4, so very exciting. And also, the project currently we are doing is Savannah. It's a very small seaside and historical town that we can deal with environmental issues like related to sustainability and sea level rise issues. It's also a very interesting project. And different projects allow us to understand the basic design methods of urban design from various scales and scopes. And for each review, Alan and Richard will help us to invite relevant expertise, residents, and governments to participate in the discussion together, which is incredibly helpful and enable us to learn how to communicate with people in different fields in practical projects. It's very important. Also, at the same time, there are many interesting parts in the basic studio life. Like we have many field trips to help us understand different parts of the city. And in these activities, the students have become very good friends. Personally, I love these people, and we often go out and play together. And so it's very interesting to come here and live and learn from people all over the world. So don't hesitate, join us.
Thank you, Anna. That was great. Let's go back to live. So we have to stop sharing. And okay, so Sam.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the courses that we have. Ellen has already mentioned that the courses that you'll be having next year. But I'm just going to talk a little bit about the courses and how I felt about the courses. So the main thing, obviously, since this is a studio-related course, are the fall semester studio and the spring semester studio. And Ellen will be the director for the fall studio, and Richard will be taking the spring studio.
So we're going to flip it next year.
Oh, okay, we switch. Okay. But both the studios are incredible experiences for me, and it was really interesting to see the amount of live work with actual live focus that we were able to do, and not just fictional projects, which was really interesting for me. And other than that, we also, as part of the studio, we saw the pictures, we got to present to citizens, and we got to get community feedback as part of our studio, and we were not confined to just the studio space with respect to our studio. And as for the theory subjects, we get to take Ellen's theory of urban design, which I really liked because of how it was structured, and also I like the syllabus itself. And so usually how the theory courses are structured over here is for Ellen's studio and for Ellen's theory subject and for Richard's theory subject, there'll be lectures or weekly lectures or bi-weekly lectures throughout the week, and there'll be readings that you get to do. And so these readings will correspond to what's being taught in that particular class. And the fact that you know the subject matter that's being discussed for the theory subject is, I feel, really important for a particular theory group, of course, because you get to have a background info, and then you get to listen to what the professor has to present, and then you can discuss with it. So I think that presents a really interesting way to learn theory courses. And also we had the law course in spring, and the real estate, excuse me, the real estate production finance in fall. And personally, I think it's very important to take these two courses because you get to have at least an understanding of what goes on with finance and what goes on with the law. Like a quote that our professor says, our law professor says before the start of every course is that I don't want to make you lawyers, but I want to make you aware of when to call a lawyer. And I think that's extremely important in our profession. So the production finance and the law course is more structured towards in-class learning, which is, I think, an equally important part. And as you saw the pictures, most of our studio work takes up most of our time. And I prefer to work in studio, and some other people might also prefer to work at home rather than in studio. And that brings me to the college campus. I prefer to work in studios because I genuinely love this campus. It's a really good walkable environment. It's a really good bikeable environment. And you get something or the other happening all the time over here. There's some events happening. There's some student organizations tabling, and there's quite a few organizations that one can be part of if they would like to. For example, I'm a part of the Christian ministry over here, and I'm part of the Georgia Tech International Ambassadors. So these organizations also kind of help you get around campus, navigate your way around campus. They help you get to know more people rather than just stay confined to your own people in your own profession or your own building. And also, like whenever I work late, if I which is an important part. I always have the students and to go to all I can do next where we have a pop-up house that's open all through the night. So you get everything that you need at a walkable or at a bikeable distance. And like when things get like really stressful during finals week, Georgia Tech Health Initiatives is always putting out stuff like free massages, there's puppies in the campus. So everything is structured in such a way that you get a really good work environment, and it's just purely you can engage with whatever you want to, and you can withdraw yourself whenever you want to, and you've got a really nice place to work. So overall, I feel like it's a well-rounded course, and it's a really good studio, and yeah, it's a fantastic work environment.
Cool. Hey guys, I'm going to talk about Atlanta for a little bit. And so they talked about the schooling and the campus and everything, but you guys should be excited that you're coming to Atlanta, not only for the program, but it is just a perfect, like, peak time to be here right now, just because Atlanta is going through such an interesting change. And I think it offers an opportunity for urban designers, for us to be here at a time where we can define a lot, you know? Going to big cities like New York or Toronto or Chicago, you don't really make a dent in your community. You get in there and you get out. You do a little projects on in the neighborhoods and then you get out. But here in Atlanta, I think it's just a peak time for you to define helping out the community and helping define the culture of the city. It's not the biggest place, and it's not perfect. It's not a perfect city. We're very suburban. We have a lot of the problems that we're facing in the urban design program, and yet there's so much culture to the city. You know, you mentioned Waffle House. You know, that's just an example of it started here. There's a lot of things that started here. Famous worldwide places. Coca-Cola started here. Home Depot started here. UPS Delta started here. So there's just a lot of money and a lot of culture that we get to define. And so with that, especially with the studios, I think the biggest part of that, the biggest part of our studios is that we get to have a say in the community, especially I think it's fundamental, not just, oh, we're urban designers and we need to learn how to retrofit or rebuild or anything like that, but I think most importantly is to engage with the community. We're facing projects and issues regarding places that actually need it. You know, retrofitting doesn't mean we're upgrading it for a new piece. No, it means that we're upgrading it so that the benefits of people who currently reside get to enjoy and reap the benefits of what we designed. We get to see it up close. We get to engage in the community. We get to meet the people that it would affect. And I think it's fascinating. Yeah, I'll talk about the South Broad project. And, you know, that's a huge development. There's just a lot going on. That's possibly a site for Amazon's headquarters too, if you guys know about that. And so that is just a huge development that could play out really well or really not so good, not so well for other people. So I think it's important that we get to have a say as Georgia Tech students, and to define how we want to build our communities. You know? And I think this program, in the beginning, I personally thought, like, okay, we're facing a lot of American issues. How does this affect, you know, China or India? But then I realized, like, all the concepts that we are addressing here can also be applied to developing countries, just because they're going, a lot of these countries are going down the same path of being very auto-centric, very suburban, and hopefully I think this program is really good to, especially being in Atlanta, to really teach our students and ourselves about these are the lessons forward. We don't have to make the same mistakes that we did here. We don't have to be yeah, you guys don't have to make the same mistakes that we've made in America and hoping to fix it 2 decades later, you know? So I think it's a really fascinating time to be here, and truly it is exciting. There's a lot of bike trails, a lot of places to check out. You know, bars, institutions, museums. It's very fascinating, very exciting place to be. We're not New York, but I've been here for the last 4 years. This is where I've chosen to live, and it's just, you know, you do it for the culture here. You know? As an avid biker and as an avid soccer fan, like this city is perfect for me, and I think and I think this city can be really interesting for you guys too. And I'm sure they'll attest to being surprised by Atlanta as a city that they really can come to grow and love, you know. And I think it's just a really exciting time to be, you know. So get excited, you know.
All right. Oh, great. Now let's all kind of huddle around, but I'm going to open up chat. And really now I want to invite all of you listening, who've been listening to us patiently for all this. Do you have any questions? So let's see. I've got one question here from Dedmaya. How helpful will the program be if I want to come back to my home country to start my own architectural practice? Who wants to take a stab?
I actually want to take the question. So I've talked to Devalia before, and I also know that since he's from my same country, he will be aware of the Smart City initiative that our Prime Minister started. And along with the Smart City initiative, there are way too many funding sources and way too many grants that the government is issuing for better designed urban spaces, public spaces. And the firm that I used to work at moved from being just an architecture firm to an urban design firm, and is now doing a lot of work in Chennai and my city related to the urban design of the city, related to the sidewalks, related to how the streets could be better and the streets could be more pedestrian friendly and transit oriented. And most of this is because my principal architect is an urban designer. So the knowledge that you get here, you can easily transfer that back.
I would add to it as well that actually I'm working right now on a committee to try to, within the US, increase the requirements for all architecture schools to have to teach architecture students that much more about urbanism. And much of the argument is that as the globe becomes, our population is becoming more and more urban, architects who can't explain to their clients how their building actually responds and actually contributes to the life of the city are going to be at just a worse and worse disadvantage. And I think a lot of the power of really great architecture is how it contributes to that larger city. So I think understanding the urbanism absolutely just makes you a better architect. So I hope that answered your question. So please, if anyone else has questions, otherwise I'm going to sort of turn it now to back to the students. You know, what were some of the questions that you had?
One major question that I had when I was coming here was, how is the housing situation going to be for me? Because I have no idea about where I'm going to live, and I had no idea where I was going to live, and I had to communicate all of this from back home. But what happened was a lot of the India club at Georgia, we have an India club at Georgia Tech, and the Indian students who are already here, they kind of communicated the situation and where students usually live, and they suggested apartments that we could look at, that we could blindly trust that, okay, if we pay the advance and if we say, make all the red tape, we are going to be guaranteed a good home. So I trusted them and it worked out. So, and also starting this year, Georgia Tech has expanded its Stingray services to apartments around the area. So you wouldn't have to worry about getting back home late at night if you're working in studio, because you can call the Stingray, which is like the tech Uber, for lack of a better term, and you can directly go home in Stingray.
And also, Uber and Lyft, it's very convenient for us to go to around the city and around the campus. And also, if you want to find an apartment, you can just Google the Georgia Tech campus and just search the apartments surrounding the school, and you can find the reviews and find the price for very convenient.
Yeah. I mean, certainly my biggest advice is try to live as close as you can. I mean, it is more expensive. Often the on-campus, the graduate student housing is very nice and very convenient, but it is kind of pricey. Generally, the apartments that are not officially dorms are a little bit cheaper, but now there's some brand new ones coming in that are probably even more expensive. I live almost 4 miles from campus in Inman Park, and I bike to school every day. Not everybody's into biking, but if I can do it, I bet you can.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna expand on it just because, apartment and Uber, but also, Atlanta's pretty relatively flat. It's not.
Oh, it's hilly. It's hilly.
Okay, all right. But still, the point I'm making is mostly you can bike from almost anywhere in the city. The bike infrastructure is coming along, and especially next to Georgia Tech, just because there are so many students, that bike infrastructure immediately around this area is incredibly developed. I mean, the two professors and we actually live in the exact same area, and so I bike up here every day and bike back down here, and I have no issues. We talked about the Beltline. That's also just a really convenient method of transport, and just like a really model-esque like urban design project. Everyone uses it.
Well, and it helps. Part of what helps the walking and biking is Atlanta's weather.
Yeah.
In the summer, it gets pretty hot and humid. That's part of why we say go to Europe in the summer. But so I'm not biking to school every day in the summer, but the rest of the year, we tend to have a really high proportion of sunny days, just actually really quite lovely weather. We'll get a little bit of snow, very little, that is our norm. So I'm going to talk a little bit about next year's studios. I'll talk a little about mine and then ask Richard. So mine is still not completely set up yet, but I'm in discussions with the city of Atlanta, has actually signed a contract with Georgia Tech to advance smart cities proposals. And as part of that, 2 years ago, well, not as part of that, but 2 years ago, I did a studio sponsored by the city looking at downtown Atlanta in 25 years and how to leverage autonomous vehicles to give us the city that we really want. Autonomous vehicles could give us heaven, they could give us hell. But the premise of that one was that they could give us heaven. What do we really want that to be? This coming spring, probably going to be also looking at identifying routes for autonomous shuttle buses. Georgia Tech is going to have them very soon on our campus here. North Avenue, which connects Georgia Tech to Ponce City Market and the Beltline, is going to be Atlanta's first smart corridor with autonomous shuttle buses. The RFP's gone out for vendors for that, went out last week. So I will be looking at some additional shuttle bus routes in the studio, and then we will be designing what is the impact, what does that mean for the properties along that route? How do those begin to be rethought of? Can we start building on more of the parking lots? Can we start imagining housing and office and retail that doesn't have parking what is that? How do we begin to reuse that space? How do we reconfigure the streets? Those are going to be some of the kinds of questions. And we're not quite sure exactly where the site in Atlanta is going to be, but I think next year is going to be an Atlanta heavy, both of the studios, but they're going to be looking at some very contemporary issues. So my studio focusing on the autonomous vehicles.
In the studio in the fall will be on a watershed called Poplar Creek, which is the most polluted watershed in Atlanta. Combined sewer and stormwater has been flowing down Poplar Creek for a long time. And the communities along the creek have banded together and started to demand change. The Turner Foundation, the Ted Turner, who owns the cable news, CNN, the cable news network, its foundation will be funding the studio. We'll be working with the Westside Watershed Alliance, a group of watershed ecologists, in addition to the Georgia Conservancy, who's also a sponsor of our studios, and working with a framework, imagining a framework of how to redevelop and continue to develop neighborhoods with green infrastructure. So normally we think of infrastructure as being streets traditionally with pipes under them. And this would be looking at stormwater and green infrastructure as the framework, which keeps water and the landscape and natural processes visible within the development of a neighborhood, whether it's relatively low density, single family detached neighborhoods, or the redevelopment of vacant sites that have been the sites of public housing that's been demolished to redevelop those as a higher density. It also connects to the Chattahoochee River, the river that Atlanta has is 5 miles away from downtown. That will look also at the waterfront condition of the Chattahoochee River.
All right, and we're just about time is up, but we do also have another question from Ashna, and I think Richard kind of just answered it. So Ashna says that the few urban design projects I've been working on focus a lot into the soft landscape detailing, the green infrastructure. And apart from urban spaces and street design, the bandwidth also includes projects like biodiversity parks and no development zones, including designing through only greenscape. Are these kind of interrelations we'll be working on as well?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And in the fall semester, we also collaborated teaching a class on green infrastructure and sustainable communities that has both has architects, environmental engineers, and city planning students in the class, and we work on real projects. And that will be allied to the fall studio. One of the things that I do in the fall is make sure that everyone understands that the basis of everything is water. An architect all the way across the world either have too much water, as in the project we're working on now in Savannah, or we don't have enough. So water is the basis of everything that we have to start thinking, and urban design is a perfect place to start dealing with water and educate other people, communities, and our colleagues in particularly architecture.
So with that, I hope you learned a lot about us. I hope you're excited to come and join us. And feel free to email Robin or me with any more questions that you have. I hope we'll see you in August. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.